Hey, I'm Mark Lee Morrison, and this is the 71st episode of Low Profile. Singer, author, and Nashville Songwriter Hall of Famer Layng Martine Jr.'s compositions have been performed by the likes of soul legends, the Pointer Sisters, Featherbed frontman Barry Mannilow, Bo Diddley, Reba McEntire, Las Vegas regional sensation Elvis Presley, and Philly correspondent Karl Blau. After over 6 decades in the background and just a handful of singles under his own name, 2023 marks Layng's debut album, Music Man.
Baby, turn the lights down low. Turn up the radio. It's midnight and your daddy's on the air. Every record, old and new, playing just for you. So close your eyes and I'll be right there. 'Cause baby, I am your music man. Oh, and I'm gonna rock you like no other can. Baby, I am your music man. I'm gonna fill your soul with song, with a beat that can't go wrong. Stay with you all night long, music man.
Layng Martine Jr.'s Music Man is produced by his son Tucker Martine, who's brought us records by tons of folks including Modest Mouse, Roseanne Cash, Mudhoney, Laura Viers, My Morning Jacket, and friend of the show Karl Blau. Today, the two of them visit Low Profile via Tucker's Portland studio, Flora Recording and Playback. Layng shares stories about doing landscaping for the big band leader Benny Goodman, writing songs in the air, accidentally meeting Jerry Lee Lewis, and how he reacted when he first heard one of his songs recorded by the king of rock and roll, friend of the show Karl Blau. And there's even a story about Elvis. Tucker speaks about his developmental practices in sound engineering and music, and the story behind his dad's first album to be released. Low Profile is supported by you through flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/lowprofile. Olympia, Washington in-kind support is thanks to Schwartz's Deli, Rainy Day Records, Old School Pizzeria, San Francisco Street Bakery, and Schurler Easy Premium Shitty American Lager from Three Magnets Brewing Company.
Music man.
Well, just ahead of this interview, the listeners heard Music Man, the title track from your new album.
Thank you. Well, Music Man really is about how much I loved being alone in my room at night and listening to the radio and just the intimate feeling you get with the DJs and the songs and how you invent your life lying there in the dark in your bed. But also later on, when I was a teenager, I loved being in my car alone at night on the highway in the dark and hearing the DJs and the records. And it's just, that's what Music Man is about to me, the people that just sort of enriched my life on the radio.
And so this record is made up of songs that you've had kind of kicking around.
These are songs that Tucker chose from basically all the songs that I've ever written, which began in late 1963. So what is that, 59 years ago. So one of the songs called Let the World Go By was from 1964. And then there's a song on there called I Can't Be What You Want Me to Be, and that was written just before we made the album, so maybe 6 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the songs are from all aspects of my life, you know. Most of my life was boy-girl songs were most of my life. I just love the tension and feeling between, boys and girls, men and women, lovers of all kinds. And all the songs that I grew up on were like Whole Lotta Shakin', Jerry Lee Lewis, and All Shook Up, Elvis Presley. Just this tension between discovering that you're crazy about somebody. I thought it was just the greatest feeling going. So lots of my songs were about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of material just in that one feeling.
Absolutely. Endless.
Yeah.
Markley, one of the interesting things about Tucker invented himself. Tucker had an idea of who he was really, really young. And he would be in his room when he was, I'm going to guess 13 or 14, and people like 35 years old would come over with floppy disks and stuff, and they'd close the door and they'd be in the room, and Tucker'd be inventing sounds or just learning the computer. And then he would be in the basement with his band, and we would hear people auditioning to be his singer or something, and we'd hear people saying absolutely incredible words. They're coming up through our kitchen floor, and we're saying, "Wow, I hope they don't choose that guy." And then a few hours later, Tucker would come and said, "You wouldn't believe the horrible guy we just had audition for us." And when Lynn and I are going, "Oh my God, thank you."
Yeah, well, Tucker, I feel like we should give the unwitting listener a little bit of background about your work as well before we get really into the weeds here.
Sure.
So, you grew up in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grew up in Nashville.
Music City.
Music City. The great irony being I left Music City the morning after my high school graduation.
He did, absolutely. Yeah, he left Markley with what he thought was enough money, and I guess it was, but I mean, we gave Tucker $500 in cash, and he burst into tears and said he didn't need it. I mean, this kid is brave, and he left. He went to every state. One night he called up, I think he was maybe 19, Tuck, something like that, and he said, "Dad, I've been to every state except Hawaii and Alaska." Every state he could drive to, he had been to when he was 19 or maybe 20, I don't know. But he just had guts to burn from day one. I think he'd had his license just a few weeks when living in Nashville. He said, "I'm going to a Bob Dylan concert in Wisconsin or Apple Valley, wherever that is." Is that where that is? Wherever that is. So. He was going way the hell away. And it was great because Tucker just had this confidence that he could just take care of himself. He could take care of himself when he was very, very young. He didn't bat an eyelash over any kind of problem, really. He never called home for help, put it that way.
I didn't have a quarter.
Yeah. And I was just about to say, it's a coin toss at that age, whether it's naivety or it's vision, you know?
Right.
Or,
I think it's a little bit of each.
Yeah. Right? Naivete really helps.
Yeah.
In everything. To start out in the music business and think you can make $3 and to stay alive is total naivete, because it's got to be pretty much as hard as anything you could ever do. That's my take. I don't know.
It's good when you're a teenager that you have no idea how impossible it's going to be to make a living doing, a creative pursuit.
Yeah.
Or else you might not try.
There was a very famous songwriter in Nashville, Markley, named Boudleaux Bryant. And when I first met him, he said, "The music business is a penny business. Never forget that." And what he meant was, you read your royalty statements and you see all these pennies, and hopefully they add up to something but it is just pennies, really. They're paying you in pennies. And it's a penny business also in the sense that you don't make, you have times when you don't make any money, certainly, but then times when you just make very little, even when you're ostensibly pretty good at it. And so his warning really early on, he wrote Bye Bye Love and Wake Up Little Susie and All I Have to Do Is Dream and all these kinds of amazing songs. So I paid attention to anything he said, and he meant save your money, try and be frugal.
I had some friends when I was in 5th grade. I had one of my best friends was learning guitar, and one of my other best friends was learning bass. And they learned enough to play like Van Halen and Kink songs and stuff like that on the power chords on the guitar, which to me at that age just sounded like they might as well they might as well have been Eddie Van Halen. I was like, you're incredible. That sounds exactly like it. So I was really inspired and kind of envious too, like, because it just felt like, well, now they have access to this entire other like magical universe. And as much as I like to stand here and cheer them on, like I wanted to be part of it. So I had already been interested in the drums for a long time, but this was a real impetus now. I thought if I can learn how to play the drums quickly enough, passable, I could play with these guys before they find somebody else. So that just sent me on the fast track of just banging on, whatever I could find. I mean, I feel like every drummer has this story, but I 100% learned for a while on those empty ice cream tubs that my mom would get from Baskin-Robbins when they were done. And then eventually saved up for, a snare drum and a drum kit. But so I was self-taught pretty much, and just for the purpose of being able to play with my friends. And within I want to say about 6 months, we were busy. We were a busy band playing like the 8th grade dances, eventually playing like Vanderbilt frat parties, and there was an all ages club and anyone that would have us. But we actually even started making some money. Got our own PA system. I was the band's treasurer. I think looking back, I realized I was I was sort of managing the thing too, because I thought, well, the only way this is going to happen is if, I don't really want to be doing this stuff, but it's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah, someone's got to step up.
Right.
One day I walked into Tucker's room. He was on the phone. I think he's about 14, and this teen club had opened up, and they were sort of telling him that he couldn't play at the club. And Tucker said, "Have you ever heard us?" And I just thought, this is so wonderful, because this is just how you have to be. He said, well, you can't tell us we can't play there until you have heard us. So you have to hear us. And you're going to like it. And that was the kind of thing, just at 14 or whatever he was, that he's exhibited always. It's like, but, it's just always seeing over the rainbow and able to ask the next question to get you 1 inch farther down the road.
They did eventually have us play. And then they had us back because they liked us.
Well, good. Yeah. I like that story.
I eventually, I would plug into our little custom PA 6-channel mixer, and then discovered that with some Radio Shack connectors, I could take this output from the back into my cassette deck, just the left side of the cassette deck. But then I could record our practices, and I could listen back when everyone left and figure out what sounded good and what didn't. And over time, I got more curious about making those recordings just sound more listenable, because at first you realize, well, all you can hear is the singer, or all you can hear is the guitar or something. And
yeah.
So that was kind of the beginning of eventually wanting to learn how to record. And I never really thought, I want to learn to be an audio engineer, but I did think I want to learn to get the ideas with my friends, what we're doing. I want to be able to capture it, and then to capture it better, kind of from the perspective of making things with my friends, not from wanting to just do it for other people's bands, right? But then over time that presented itself, and I realized that was pretty cool too, especially when I liked the artists a lot. So
cool. And that seems to be going pretty okay for you, huh?
I've been staying pretty busy.
30 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. You've got a pretty impressive body of work, production-wise, and also
Thanks.
with your own music as well, which we don't hear too often, but
not very often. No, I need to push that to the foreground here soon. Then
you're old man, if you'll forgive the term.
Yeah, it's quite accurate.
Yeah. But am I correct that this is your first Layng Martine Jr. album?
I made an album about 50 years ago, 48 years ago or something. It never came out. So this is the first album that'll be coming out.
First to see the light of day.
I didn't even know that.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you learning this right now?
I am just learning this right
now. We
now.
completed an album after Rub It In. I had a song called Rub It In.
Lay beside me on the sand. Put some lotion on your hand. Come on and make me feel nice and kiss me once or twice and say you love me again. And rub it in, rub it in. Rub it in, rub it in. I feel a tingle begin. You'll get under my skin. Rub it in, rub it in.
Yeah. I know that from the 90s, the air freshener commercials. That's
isn't that
my
fun?
first exposure.
Well,
But
so
I do have the 45 at home now.
really?
Oh, nice.
I do.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, thank you. That was produced by Ray Stevens, who's just a complete genius. I don't know if you remember him, Markley, but he had a lot of really big records, incredibly imaginative.
Yeah, he wrote Teenage Mutant Kung Fu Chickens, also in the 90s.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God.
Pretty
he wrote The
genius.
Streak. Were you
Yep.
around when The Streak was a hit? You know?
Oh, yeah, with the
Yeah.
little, what do you call that kind of whistle?
Yeah, I don't even know, but it was, yeah.
He likes to show off his physique.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, it was so interesting. Like, I stood around when he made his records, because I learned so much. But when he finished that record, it didn't have the whistle on it. And he just listened to it over and over, and he said, "This needs something. It needs some magical thing." And we went down to this music shop, and he tested whatever they had for sounds, and he said, "I'm taking this whistle. This'll do it." And he went back and put it on, and that was just the trigger that just smacked you in the face, and you said, "I love this
it's
record,"
iconic.
because of that whistle.
And it's
great
so-
enough already, but the whistle is a coup de grace.
Yeah.
And it is the sound that accompanies the image of somebody just like running by as fast as they can, right?
Yeah, woo!
I mean, that's what
Right.
that sound means now.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes, they call him the Streak. Look at that, he likes to show off his physique. Look at that, if there's an audience to be found, he'll be streaking it round, inviting public critique.
So pretty iconic. So he produced a whole record for you, or did he produce the
Yes,
the
we
Rub It In
produced
single?
all the sides, the whole, 10 or 12 sides.
Wow.
And you know, my next record after Rub It In, what didn't do that well, so they decided they wouldn't put the album out.
This album is really something, though. So you've been working on it for, did you say 6 years?
No. We've been sitting on it finished for at least 6 years.
Oh, wow.
We made it quickly, very quickly.
What started it, Markley, is one Christmas, Tucker gave me studio time for an album. He said, "Dad, this is your present." It was on a card. I'm giving you my studio and me as the producer to make an album together. And that's what started it. And so we set the date. It was in May after Christmas. And we worked for this week. And in the meantime, Tucker chose the songs. And I learned them. And we made it. And it was just so much fun. He got wonderful, fantastic musicians who we all bonded. And just we have this magical thing that we did in this week. So I'm going to see them again tomorrow.
There's some heavy hitters on this album. You want to tell me a little bit about the personnel?
Well, you go through them, Tuck. You tell.
Okay, sure. A year or so before we made this record, I made a record with a friend, Karl Blau.
Sure.
And the arrangement for that record was actually very similar to this one. I was going to choose the songs, and I was going to choose the band. And Karl was basically going to come in and be the singer, like the way they that at least I picture they would make a George Jones record in 1975 or something.
Right,
you know,
right.
like, I mean, I'm sure he was part of the conversation about the songs, but I think that a lot of those choices were being made by the label and the producers. And so we made this record with Karl, and it was, you know, we thought it was probably just going to be for fun. It was getting together with our buddies, all of us who had been close friends for a long time and who just admired what each other did. And we were all in to do it, even though it wasn't like there was some label with a big budget. We did it. We had a blast. And during the process of that, it dawned on me how to make a record with my dad, because we had been talking about it forever. Every time we saw each other, we'd say, we should do something. And I guess I could just never visualize exactly how it would go down enough to just pull the trigger and be the one to make it all happen. But with this Karl record, this team felt so good, and I know that all of them were big fans of my dad, like personally, but also musically. So that's when it hit me. I was like, yeah, we'll pick the songs and get this same crew back together.
Cool.
For Dad's record. And so
Layng had a song on "Let the World Go By" was also on that record.
Yes, yeah. God, you got
Exactly.
a good little brain up there that's just working like crazy. Yeah, thanks.
I listen to what I like.
Well, Karl's album is so absolutely fantastic. I just can't believe how good that thing is. One song after another.
Dad
I was so
loved
honored
that-
to be on that song.
that version.
album.
Some days are just lonely days. Some days it just rains. Some days are just lonely days, and they don't bring nothing but pain. And in those times, you know how to find it just don't pay to cry. Just lie in the shade and drink and let the world go by.
In fact, Dad liked Karl's voice so much from having heard that's how I got to Memphis. Was something Karl and I had done years before we made that album.
Right.
And I know Dad just loved that, and he had said to me, like, oh, that's the kind of voice you'd just do anything to hear that person sing one of your songs. Really. And I've only heard Dad say that about a few people in his life. And I mean, Elvis Presley recorded one of his songs in the late 70s, and
Yeah, I don't have any record of any even great people that I love any more than that Karl record. That would be in my top very few. He's just so good.
It's an instant classic. Yeah.
I really think so. And he plays the guitar. A lot of the guitar on there, like the lead parts, right? Am I right about that?
On that song, Karl did. Yeah,
on that song. Yeah, I mean, he's just such an amazingly talented person. It's really something, Markley, how many amazingly talented people there are floating around, and incredibly talented. But when we hear Karl, it's a different level of talented because it's completely one of a kind. He doesn't sound like anybody. He just has a voice of his own. His vocals are you just think he's going to die at the end of this song.
Right. He's got that nice little crackle in his voice.
Oh, man.
Just at the right moments.
Pain.
Hit that sweet spot. Yeah.
So I was going to introduce the players on the record. Steve Moore, one of my dear old friends, one of the first musicians I befriended when I moved to Seattle at the end of '92, plays the keyboards. I want to say all the keyboards. I want to be sure I'm right about that. But the piano, organ, Wurlitzer, whatever needed to happen with keys. I think there's a little bit of Juno synthesizer on there. Eli Moore, no relation.
Sure.
Plays that just sublime, sparkling electric guitar and most, if not all, the bass. So I don't have the credits in front of me, and there was occasionally people would switch around instruments, but Eli played most or all the bass and some acoustic guitar. Eli also will just make a magic sound happen with whatever you put in his hands.
Yeah, he's got magic fingers.
He does.
Both Eli and Karl have guest hosted episodes of this show in the past. So.
Oh, no kidding.
So the listeners will be familiar.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Great. Yeah, this is all in the family.
Yeah.
And it's the sensibilities of all of us match. You can just tell that what we think is important in life in general must be the same because we gelled so quickly. And the sounds that we all loved. We didn't really have to debate too much. It just went so smoothly. Yep, Markley, I couldn't count how many times I have been riding to lunch with somebody in Nashville and they'd have their radio on and they'd shriek at some note that singer missed on the radio or how some record sped up or how it slowed down or whatever. It's some flaw. And I think it's fascinating. Nobody cares this shit. They just want to know, do I love this? It's making me feel so fabulous. Don't tell me that it slows down or speeds up. It should speed up. It's perfect, you know?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's what Tucker's talking about, this feeling.
Yeah, definitely. The feeling is really important. If people aren't having a good time, I feel like you can hear that. If they're just they're just working, it might just come across sounding like work or just not have that little touch of soul that you need.
Yeah.
To really make
there was a famous songwriter named Harlan Howard, and he said exactly what you just said. People would play him a song sometimes, and they'd say, well, what do you think of that? And he said, it sounds like a man working. And that's really what you're talking about.
I love Harlan Howard. Bakersfield.
Oh, God, that guy was so unbelievably busted. Mm-hmm. He had an amazing thing that he, like, sort of a famous thing in Nashville, but it's fair. He would go to the bar every day around 11 o'clock, and one day this kid was there, songwriter, just crying the blues to him, pouring out his heart and all the horrible treatment that he'd gotten and how he hadn't really, no one was paying attention to him and wasn't getting anywhere, and he was just desperate and everything. And when the kid finished his tale of woe, Harlan looked at him and said, son, did anybody send for you? And that's about all the message you need to know. You're there because you want to be, and it's not everybody's job to just love what you're doing. It's just. I don't know.
What was the first song that someone recorded of yours?
There was a guy when I was in New York starting out who had written a lot of hits, and he asked me if I'd write with him. Why, I don't know, but I finally did. I really got songwriting lessons from him, and we wrote a few songs. The Christie Minstrels were a sort of a folk group at the time, and they recorded a few of them. And then other songs of ours were recorded by good people. I don't know if you ever heard of Brian Hyland. He had a big hit with Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. I don't know if you remember that. It was a massive hit. This was on the back of one of his hits, which was called The Joker Went Wild, and our song on the back was called I Can Hear the Rain, and that was one of the first that was on a single, which I was actually holding in my hand.
It may be sunny as I walk along, but something's wrong, baby, something's wrong. I know it's wrong, 'cause baby,
This is Low Profile. I'm Markley Morrison, and I've been speaking with the songwriter Layng Martine Jr. and his son, producer Tucker Martine. Layng's new album is called Music Man.
Is it true that you were a non-musician when you became a songwriter?
In a way, yeah. I didn't have a guitar. I still don't read music or anything. I didn't own a guitar. I wrote Let the World Go By just in the air.
Yeah.
Just like, well, some days are just lonely days. Walking around my neighborhood, and I thought, this is fantastic. This is utterly the greatest thing I ever could imagine. And I sang that to musicians, and I think we had it played on a harmonica. Yeah, I think we did. But that was just so exciting. That was one of my early demos, and I thought, God, man, they liked my melody. They played it. This is the most exciting thing in the world. And then I think I got a guitar that, if you can believe it, it cost $15. I know it did. And I just learned those chords that I could play, again, all shook up and a whole lot of shaking. I realized, well, all the songs that I love, I can play on these few chords, and I can play them. And so how can I make these chords write some songs and use them to write some songs of my own? And it just was so basic, but it was basic because all the songs that I loved were just these few songs. And maybe had I, kind of come of age during the Beatles or something when they used more complex chords, that would have been something. But it really was just Buddy Holly and Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis, and they were my guiding lights, and I used the chords that they used.
Yeah, 3 chords and the truth, like they say, right?
Yeah. But I didn't really know I was going to college in New York, and I had written this song called Swagger, which I was just certain was going to be bigger than football in about 2 hours. And there was a bar on Broadway called the Turf Bar, and I knew all the musicians and songwriters hung out in this place. And I saw these 2 black guys with, pompadours and sunglasses on inside and everything, and I said, they got to be songwriters. Mm-hmm. And I just went up and asked them if they were songwriters, and they, honest to God, they laughed for 30 seconds. They just thought it was the funniest thing. They're slapping their knees and high-fiving each other and everything. It's, the funny. They said, so you're a songwriter. What instrument do you play? And I said, well, I really don't play an instrument. I just sing the songs. And the guy said, in the air? And I said, yeah. And again, they just broke into these incredible high fives. And they said, you're all right, boy, you're all right. And they told me where to go to get my demo made. And the demo cost $80, including the studio and the musicians. So I went out with this disc and had my name on it and the title Swagger. I went home and I looked on the back of my Elvis records, and it said where the music publisher was. And I went and knocked on the door, and that's what started it all. I played Swagger for this guy. He didn't wig out for it like I did or anything. But, it just starts there, and you just start it and you say, this is just too much fun. I love it, And I don't care if everybody likes my song. I'm going to find someone who likes it and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's that's the whole game. I mean, the song that Elvis recorded was a song called Way Down. I played that song for every single person I could think of, and no one even held it overnight. And then the biggest guy who ever made records in history loves it. And
Yeah.
the day he dies, it's #1 on the country charts. It's the craziest thing in the world. One day, on a Tuesday, I got a phone call from a promotion guy in Nashville who said, Layng, I just got the numbers for Billboard next week, and your record goes to #1. And 2 days later, I get a call from my lawyer in Nashville who says, are you near a TV? Did you see that Elvis died? That's how crazy it is.
Wow.
It turned out that it's literally the last new song he ever recorded. It's just ridiculous. And I went through Graceland about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and I walked in the Jungle Room, and I had the earphones on that they give you, that to hear go through the...
For like a walking tour
Yeah,
situation.
walking tour.
Yeah.
And they're playing my damn song in the Jungle Room because it was recorded in the Jungle Room.
Wow.
It's just, it's just you go
It's
along in
still
your
on
life
there.
and
I went last year.
and you just never. It's the craziest thing in the world, You're
That's
just minding
full circle, what, like 45 years ago?
Well, yet what it was really full circle was the day I was in the studio while they were mixing Way Down. It was dark, completely dark in the studio, and the producer, Felton Jarvis, who was a legendary guy, and a man named Brent Mayer, who's now a legendary record producer and recording engineer. I had never met either one of them, and they're there, and I'm on this couch leaning back, and I'm thinking of the first time I heard Heartbreak Hotel in the station wagon, going to the movies with my 7th grade girlfriend and going crazy for that record. And I'm thinking, it's 20 years later, and this guy's, it's just the impossible dream, more than you could ever dream for,
Weren't you were at someone's office pitching a song, and you were on your way out or something, and someone you recognized came in and was like, oh, hey, Layng, you got anything you think would be good for Elvis? Wasn't it just like that you just happened to be...
Well, yes, that he's exactly right. I used to take my songs around Nashville, which is called pitching songs. You know, you would just go around, knock on doors, and pitch your songs to people. If you could get in, and it was, you know, getting in was just the name of the game, because
Are we talking
you were
labels or studios or producers?
you could get record producers, labels, anyone you knew who had any connection. You know, people were often. You know, I mean, I knew a case where guys were a dentist and that they had a connection, and you played a song for a dentist. I mean, it's just insane like that.
Yeah.
But in this case, I was sitting in an office waiting to play my songs, and at the time, the most famous music publisher in Nashville was a man named Bob Beckham, and he came in and sat down next to me. And he said, "Hey, Layng, do you have anything for Elvis?" Well, everyone in Nashville knew that Bob Beckham had a direct line to Elvis, because Felton Jarvis, the producer, would come in there every couple of weeks and pick up songs that Bob Beckham published and take them back and see if Elvis liked them. And that he just got an enormous number of songs recorded because he had this great relationship, and he did not need to share that relationship with anyone. And when he asked me for that, I just couldn't believe it. And I said, "Yes, I do." And anyway, a long story. I went to Ray Stevens and said, "It's going to cost $20 or something to get a disc cut." Elvis would only listen to discs. You couldn't give him tapes.
Right.
And the legend was that he would put it on often on a really inexpensive record player in the studio, and if he didn't like it, he would sort of frisbee it across the studio. Oh man. So I took the way down over to Bob Beckham's office, and about a week later, Felton Jarvis, the producer, called Ray Stevens and said, "Elvis is going to go crazy for this song." So Ray came back and told me that, and he said, "Layng, Felton just called, and he said Elvis is going to go crazy for that." So, I mean, I just completely went crazy myself. And then 4 months passed, and I never heard another word. And I was out pitching songs one day, and on the street I heard that Elvis again was looking for songs. Got another disc cut and took it back to Bob Beckham. And about 3 hours later, I got a call from Bob Beckham's secretary saying, "Layng, I think Elvis has already recorded this song." And I said, "Well, that's impossible. I would know." And she said, "Let me check." So she went and checked, and she said, "Yes, he recorded it on October 30th at such and such a time." You know, so, I mean, I got in. We had this tragic Volkswagen that had no headliner and many colors outside. I jumped in this car and went racing home to tell my wife that this had happened, because it was just such an culmination of, you know, I never knew if it would ever come out or anything.
Yeah.
Or anything would ever happen, but just the idea that he had recorded. So anyway, that's a long story of something that was just kind of unbelievable.
I love that story.
That's incredible. Wow. I wonder if any of your old demos might ever see the light of day, if there's some demand after this album comes out.
I don't know. I had a pretty good demo of Way Down.
Yeah.
And Elvis, it's fairly similar, wouldn't you say, Tucker?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Do
pretty
you have
similar.
that? Do you think we could hear that?
You could play it if you want to.
Babe, you're getting closer. The lights are going dim. The sound of your breathing has made the mood I'm in. All of my resistance is lying on the floor. You're taking me to places that I've never been before. Oh, but I can feel it, feel it, I can feel it, I can feel it. Way down where the music plays, way down like a tidal wave, way down where the fires blaze, way down, way on down.
Way Down, it's also such a unique sounding song. Like, it doesn't sound like anything. It doesn't sound like an Elvis song. I don't really... Did you run home after you saw Bob Beckett and write a song with Elvis in mind?
No.
You already had it.
So there were 3 songs that I thought might be good for him. on this disc, I could only have 2 songs, one on each side. I was literally walking out the door. I was Way Down was one, Rub It In was another, and there was another song called Don't Boogie Woogie When You Say Your Prayers Tonight, which became, Jerry Lee Lewis ended up recording it, but it also became a really massive record in France by a French guy called Pod, the Boogie Woogie, Don't Boogie Woogie. But those were the 3 songs. So I was going out the door, and she said, "What songs are you going to play? What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I've kind of decided the 2 I'm going to put on the disc, but not really. What do you think?" She said, "You should put Way Down on there." And I promise you, I wasn't going to put Way Down on there.
Wow.
That's how much you don't know in the world. If she had been in the bathroom, I would have put the other 2 songs on there.
I imagine Jerry Lee Lewis was another heavy hitter for you, like personally, someone that meant a lot to you.
Yeah, he really was. I was just completely crazy about him. He recorded 3 or 4 of my songs.
Did you ever get to meet him?
Yeah, I did. And, it was so unbelievable. I was standing next to him for about a half an hour, literally. But I had no idea it was Jerry Lee Lewis.
He didn't look like the killer?
No, he didn't. And, of course, he wasn't doing his crazy. There was just no... But I also wasn't looking at him. He was over here. And, finally, I realized... I realized, I said, holy shit, oh my God, you recorded a few of my songs. It was one of those where all of a sudden then I'm a teenager again. I was a pool boy for Benny Goodman when I was growing up because we lived in a very rural part of Connecticut where most of the people around us were plumbers and, carpenters and simple kinds of jobs. But after the Second World War, it got kind of fancy because wealthy people from New York could drive an hour and get out there, and they were buying summer houses and weekend houses and everything. But I mowed every yard in our neighborhood, and I just knocked on all the doors. And when new people moved in, I knocked on the doors, and I knocked on that, and it was Benny Goodman's family, and I ended up, being their pool boy and his lawn boy, and drove him to concerts when I was later on. But he was my first look at someone who was not corporate. It was a major thing. It really made an impression on me to be weeding gardens on a Tuesday afternoon and to see him asleep by the swimming pool. I wasn't writing songs. It never occurred to me I'd be involved in music. Mm-hmm. But the idea there was another way to live with a little more freedom really stuck with me.
Or overhearing him practice, right?
Oh, yeah.
That.
The first day I went there, I'm so glad you reminded me of that, Tucker. This was a massive lesson that I've never forgotten. I'm weeding his rose beds, and over the apple trees comes the sound of a clarinet just playing da 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 over and over. Every day I went to work there. That's what I heard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the most famous clarinetist in the world practicing every
his
day.
Scales.
Every day. And so there were all these little lessons that crept in from him. Also, you learn a lot from people who aren't in your family. Men who aren't in your family. You see how they are, how they live, good or bad, and you pick up things that you wouldn't if you weren't, out and about.
You've lived a very storied life so far, and
only 30 years to go. Oh man!
I never will forget the July that we met. I was riding around with a broken heart. In a lonely mood, I stopped for food at a drive-in place I found, and I heard you singing when I rolled my window down, singing summertime loving, summertime loving, yeah, summertime loving was the number one song. The night was so warm, and the lyrics to that song, summertime loving, kinda swept hills. Until dawn we stayed, music played from my pickup's radio, and I forgot all about that girl I used to know. Singing summertime loving, summertime loving, yeah, summertime loving was the number one song. The night was so warm and the feeling was so strong. Summertime loving kinda swept us along. Singing summertime loving, yeah, summertime loving.
I gotta say, after a few listens to your record, Summertime Lovin' is the one that will not get out of my head.
Oh, that's so nice.
And that's a song about a song.
Yes,
Is
you are
this-
so right.
Is it
Yeah.
about a real song? Or is
No,
it's about
not.
itself?
It's about itself, yeah. And I mean, everything about that song is just so much part of Mike growing up. You know, we'd go to these diners and people would come to the car window and they'd give you your hamburger and then you drive off with your girlfriend. I mean, it's just so, you know. So that's one of my all-time favorites, In the Heart songs.
When did you write that one?
74.
Okay.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that. It was recorded by some good people. I forget who
Some
they
good
were,
people recorded
but
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah, most of the songs. I mean, honestly, I chose the songs that I chose for us to do for the record because I loved the original version so much. I just made a connection with that song too. That's kind of fun and meta. The way that song is about another song, and the version on our album, at the tail end, as our version ends, I just snuck in a quick fade out of the demo.
Yes, you did. I caught that.
It was just your. That
Yeah, it was
you,
my
right?
demo,
Yeah.
but a record company put it out. There was a record company called Playboy Records for a while. They were distributed by CBS. They were a major. They had a country singer named Mickey Gilley on the label.
Oh, sure.
And I had a few releases on that label, and Summertime Lovin' was one of them.
Dad
Great.
played
But it-
baseball for the Playboy baseball team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh man, that was. Playboy decided they needed a baseball team, so they made baseball cards for everybody, Markley.
I've
I mean,
gotta
on the
find
back,
those.
it looked just like a real baseball card with your number and your
the Playboy
salary,
bunny.
0.
It was the same company, right? Because
yeah,
it was the,
yeah,
used the
yeah,
same
it was-
logo. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. They we all had baseball cards for a while. It was on our refrigerator. I guess we've changed refrigerators or something. But that's,
Were you ever in cahoots with Terry Cashman, speaking of baseball?
no.
No.
I didn't know they were really successful, but I didn't know them.
Yeah.
I think they may still have lived in New York when they were.
Yeah, he's a New York guy. He's still over there.
Yeah, is he really?
Yeah.
I know they did lots of great stuff, but no, I never met him.
Wow.
Well, Nashville's just incredibly giving community, and just the way Bob Beckham helped me, get that Way Down recorded. We were often pitching each other songs and stuff like that. And like if we had an appointment and someone played us a song, we said, "Oh my God, that's just incredible!" And that guy couldn't get in to see somebody that one of us would take it if we could. In my time growing up, people helped each other often.
Well, Tucker and Layng, I think you two have really done the world a service by coming together and manifesting this album. And I think
Well,
it's just a treasure trove of terrific songs that are given a new light. Layng, your voice sounds sweet and buttery as it ever did.
Well,
You
that's
could have
so
told me
nice.
this album was recorded 40 years ago, and I wouldn't bat an eye.
That's so
I've heard
nice.
a lot of people
Thank
say
you.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, let's do it to Tucker. Tucker, I mean, I owe every single solitary bit of this to Tucker, and it's just such a pleasure because I never could have done it. I never could have put it together. Never would have chosen the songs and the way he arranged them on the album. It's perfect. And I told him, when we made this record, I just said, I wish you had been able to play on all my demos because we just have the same heartbeat or something. And where he would hit that drum would be exactly where I would, and it was so gratifying in every way. I hear those records and I think, God damn, that's just perfect,
So incredible to get to make something with your father like this, something so personal.
Well, I'm glad that it came together and that you're sharing it with us, and it's history now. It's in the books.
Thank you. Well, thank you for caring and for
Mark.
doing this, Markley.
Yeah.
You're great at it, and we really appreciate it.
This has been the 71st episode of Low Profile with Markley Morrison. Layng Martine Jr.'s album Music Man is out May 19th, 2023 on Bloodshot Records. You can find a link to that and other music referenced in today's program on this episode's website, as well as a full archive of previous episodes. That address is lowprofilepodcast.com.
One kiss and I'm walking on air. One night and my troubles are gone. You did it and I can't explain it. Something happened there in your arms. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic. Hocus pocus, hoochie coo. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic. I love every trick you do. Oh baby, I am a new man. Ain't no stopping me now. You told me that I was special, made me believe it somehow. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic, hocus pocus, hoochie coo. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic, I love every trick you do. Just when I think you've done everything, can't believe what's up your sleeve. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic, hocus pocus, hoochie coo. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic, I love every trick you do. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic, hocus pocus, hoochie coo. Ooh, ooh, little bit of magic.
Next time on the show, Phil Elverum returns to the program with audio engineer Matthew Fenton. Take care till then.